Hello. So I was going to make a Trinity video, so that's what I'm doing. This is going to be a showcase of a few builds and a few things you can do with her, because she's super underrated, and she has one of the best any content clear in the game, mainly in the form of Energy Vampire, which pretty much will instantly nuke everything with the correct build. So, Marked for Death a while back had gotten nerfed. Not anything extraordinary, but just enough to make this noticeable. When you mark for death, only the first instance will be damaged to the enemies around them. But using Epitaph or any priming equipment, you can hit, get Viral stacked on there, mark for death the enemy, and then Energy Vampire. The enemies that are not viraled do not have to be viraled, because they're taking the single instance of damage applied to the enemy. With some good range, you can get a lot of value off of this. Obviously, Nautilus is also nuts for this, because you'll be hitting a lot of enemies with him. But all you have to do is press your 1, and then Energy Vampire, and everything dies. This works for a lot of different things. Demolists are a really good example, because you can Energy Vampire them. It won't deal too much damage, but it will hit through their armor. Another good thing about this is, since Marked for Death scales with range, if you dump a little bit of stat into range, it'll hit a pretty big radius here, dealing a ton of damage. Because it's true damage, it pierces through armor, and including shields. So let's get some Corpus in here real quick. Just do... doesn't really matter who, they're just going to instantly die anyway. Also, if I'm correct, doesn't have a line of sight check, but it's very hard to tell because it instantly kills everything, and sometimes it might not pop up damage numbers. It is a ton of damage really rapidly. But it will just go through shields completely, so you won't even be shield gated by enemies that typically would shield gate you pretty aggressively. It obviously doesn't one-shot everything, but it is useful on things like Acolytes, where it will pierce their armor, and it does kind of work against their damage resistance because it is a large amount of true damage in one to them. Mark for Death does have to be applied after the viral though, because if it is applied before, it's going to take that single instance of damage for the application, and therefore it will no longer work. Just like that. So you have to viral your enemies and then hit them with it, instantly killing everything. It's super strong. Works against Acolytes, works against a lot of high HP targets because it's dealing true damage, which I think is understated, that it is directly to their HP bar, and viral doubles that damage. So the build I run with this, relatively easy to achieve, I figured. We're running Augur Reach for that extra range, Stretch for that extra range, which gives us a 17 meter explosion range, which will clear most rooms. Running Transient Fortitude because duration is absolutely useless on the build. We want Energy and Vampire to work as fast as possible. If you're not viraling enemies or inflicting any kind of status effect, then you have a 1 second duration, which activates very quickly, and it works extremely well against angels because you're not going to be able to kill them in one shot. So this allows you to repeatedly apply that and pretty much blow them up instantly. Vampire Leech is really good because while this does cost still the same amount as usual, as we only have a 105 efficiency, with using Fleeting Expertise to dump stat duration even further, it will fill up your energy bar extremely fast because it will pulse like once or twice, obviously. Flow, obviously, we need as much energy as we can get. And then Blind Rage, because again, efficiency isn't really that big of a deal. We're using Fleeting Expertise anyway. I just run Multi-Augmented and Arcane Energize here because honestly, this build is solely focused around using EV to blow things up. A more general build I do use, if that's a little too easy or anything like that, is I actually really like Tempest Barrage from Hydroid because it got a massive buff. And they also massively buffed the Augment. The Augment used to be okay, but now, with it, we can drop that there, and it will deal a ton of status debuffs. So if you're running like a melee build or anything like that, you can pretty much just stack duration, and you get free corrosion and viral stacks, which is really strong, just to be able to apply. It's not as good of an alternative as something like Nourish, because Nourish just has so many effects listed, but it is also really good for staggering a ton of enemies and also applying not only one but two different debuffs, especially on a frame that is super self-sufficient as Trinity already is with Energy Vampire. Just throw that and obviously stuns a whole bunch. The main thing here is that the stagger is super strong. Obviously, it doesn't work against Eximus units as long as they have their overguard up, so it does get a little bit weaker off of that kind of thing. But another bonus to this build is Abating Link. So when they did the armor rework, Abating Link was the first thing I noticed. Since armor used to work in a completely different way, they've changed this so that first off, they buff the Augment in general. They increase the numbers on it to make it a lot easier to perform. With it being 60%, I think it used to be like 40 or 50. This will automatically armor strip 3 targets in a 20-meter radius with this build, which is Rolling Guard, Redirection, because we really like shields on Trinity, plus the higher your invulnerability for shield gating is, the more time you have to bot Blessing, which obviously locks you into a decently lengthy animation of her slamming her hand down. A lot of her abilities do have this problem. Blind Rage, because again, efficiency is a dumb stat on Trinity, you can get away with a lot of criminally underrated stuff with this. Again, Flow, just like Energy, Intensify to increase Toxic Barrage's viral status chance, and also Energy regain and maxing out Abating Link. You can probably get rid of this because we're using Blind Rage here, which will still give you an 119, but again, using Intensify gives you a 200% status chance, which is always worth it. Continuity is here because we really want to keep Abating Link up, so we have an 18 seconds where we have a Prime Surefooted. This is also understated. Link makes you immune to status effects, and it acts as Prime Surefooted because you cannot be knocked down as long as enemies are connected to you. Meaning you can get away with a lot. So let's spawn in some Eximus units. Any of them work. Turn off their AI and spawn them. So, obviously you will still take damage, but you won't be knocked down. Now I gotta go turn them off. Which makes it very good. You won't take heat procs, you won't take toxic procs, you won't take slash procs, any of it. Which makes Abating Link one of my favorite defensive abilities in the game. As it's... yeah, the animation kind of locks you in, but it does have a really good augment for really low cost that continues to move after you kill targets, which is probably the best thing. It also seeks them through walls, which is also notable if you're trying to keep a high kill count, is that it will hunt them through walls for you as long as you can see your color. Don't run a low emissive color because then you won't be able to see it, like black or anything. You won't see it at all. So it is very handy. Obviously we're running Viral Tempest as an augment as well as Abating Link. This is general purpose build. I do love running this in just random content, as it gets a lot of mileage just from the viral applications, especially if you don't want to put viral on your weapons. It's a low cost ability on a frame that is extremely energy sufficient. I also was playing around with a little bit of thermal sunder just for the extra damage on against like eidolons and stuff like that, but I'm not entirely sure how good this is. This is just a general build, which is narrow-minded, rolling guard, blind rage, flow, stretch, intensify, and then we're running thermal transfer and abating link. Mainly because we have high duration. Abating link is around for 23 seconds, which is super strong, but we're not running range on it, so you have to be 15 meters in. Trinity's super underrated. She does have some other good augments. Well of Life I've assumed off of all slots, as I don't think it's very good. I don't even have the augment for it, or I probably do, but it doesn't show up because I don't have Well of Life equipped. I think Well of Life is a redundant ability on her. It's really good if you set it up somewhere for AoE or like big room clearing weapons, because then you can just tap into it. But late game, honestly, Blessing's just so much better, as it recovers your shields, where Well of Life does not. Well of Life does, however, have the bonus effect of dropping 4 health orbs and a guaranteed energy orb. So if you're running a greasy equilibrium build, you can have it drop for you, giving you more energy than you can probably ever do with. It's probably better on frames that Dispensary just isn't worth it on. Champion's Blessing is also very good. I would recommend, if you are running it, use it with, like, if you're running in a team, if somebody really wants to run Necros, Champion's Blessing is fantastic. The only problem with it is stacking it up as a solo player. It doesn't base off of shields, it only bases off of HP. It was clearly set up as a eidolon augment, which isn't a problem, but again, the rest of her kit is super strong, so there's not really a large point in using Champion's Blessing. There's probably some stuff you can, like unique builds you can get with it, but personally, the rest of her builds are super strong. She has a lot of utility for staying alive, and Abating Link also affects Demolists, so you can get away with using her, but obviously Ash has Seeking Shurikens, which does work better, faster, and more guaranteed that you... The problem with Abating Link against Demolists is if you step inside of their field, it will turn off. But other than that, as long as you can keep a little bit of distance, you can armor strip them for free. You can use Energy Vampire, which lets you get energy back, does bypass some of their HP and such, and then Blessing just in case they deal enough damage, and also comes with the added bonus of 75% damage reduction, so that helps too, because it does affect your shields, not just your HP. She's super underrated. I feel she's a really good support frame, and even better like solo frame. Honestly, you can do a lot with her. You can subsume off her 1 for a lot of different stuff. It lets a lot of builds thrive because of Energy Vampire and Blessing. Because even if you dump stat duration, Blessing will always be there for a massive fast boost of health. Shields, everything like that, fully restored in an instant. And if you're running even with, like, again, Necros, all of his shadows will be fully restored when hit with it. And Hildren's shields will be fully maxed out the second she's hit with it. All in affinity range, even if you dump stat range. So she's super good. I used to run her a lot in Steel Path for like 3-hour runs with melee only, because she won't get staggered. She has free energy, and she has a get out of jail free card on her floor. So thank you for watching. I would recommend at least looking into her, because other support frames just don't have like as interesting utility, in my opinion. That Energy Vampire can be used in 2 ways, where you have it just pulse energy and whatever, or you have it literally nuke rooms or nuke angels from the Zeraman instantly without any chance of them actually fighting back. It's super good, super interesting. So thank you for watching. Have a good one.